Those alive and old enough to remember during 9/11, what was the worst moment on that day? Someone in the next office was on the phone to a colleague in the World Trade Center, and I heard him say, "He's bloody hung up on me." I had just seen the news about the first plane on Anna Nova, old news website. I didn't know what to say to him. Then we went to a nearby bar to watch the news in the City of London. At one point, the news said there was a plane coming into London that they couldn't make contact with. The 3 or 4 minutes of not knowing whether to stay where I was, near big potential targets, or go to the train station was possibly the weirdest of my life. Total dislocation from normality, whilst watching the horror on the TV. I was at work, air traffic controller. It was like a 6-hour panic attack. My God, that must have been so traumatic, even if you weren't near New York. The fear that something could happen. The firefighters wore devices that would beep if it didn't sense any movement for a set period of time. There was a clip of an emergency worker walking through the rubble, and you could hear what sounded like dozens of those devices beeping. That has stuck with me more than anything else from that day. Ugh, hearing my teacher's involuntary, guttural scream of grief and fear, and just everything you never want to hear, everything that you didn't even know existed yet as a 6-year-old. Her son worked there. He didn't make it. He was pretty young, I think in his 20s. I think younger than I am now, probably. We didn't see her for a few months after that. I think she came back in the spring. I think about her a lot. But as a 6-year-old tends to do with their teacher, I lost contact long, long ago. If she's still around, I hope she's doing okay. But I'll never forget the sound she made that morning upon finding out what happened. It's like she knew. I've never been 100% sure since I didn't know his name, but I think he was in the Cantor Fitzgerald floors that were a total loss. So I guess she probably did know once she found out what floors were hit. Watching the people jump on live TV, I remember seeing the cameras zoom in on people looking out the windows above where the airplanes hit. Just putting yourself in their shoes as they stare out and down into their end. It was so sad. Still haunts me. The second tower being hit and the sudden realization that it was a deliberate attack. It was actually very scary to watch. Waiting online at Bellevue Hospital on the east side of NYC to give blood or volunteer, seeing the ghostly parade of folks who made it out, covered in dust and ash, walking up from downtown. And finally, being turned away because they weren't finding enough survivors to need our help. Not knowing where my dad was for hours and hours. Thankfully, he was okay. I had that experience too. My dad worked part-time out of the Pentagon. It turned out that he was on travel that day and never in any danger. Scary bunch of hours, though. He knew people who were killed. Waiting for the phone call to see if my uncle was still alive, because he was usually at the Pentagon by that time. But that day, for the first time in 20 years, he left the house late and got stuck in traffic. I was a senior in high school at the time. My dad was in the National Guard. I left school, and as I walked into the front door of our house, I saw my dad in his BDUs, with his bags packed ready to go. He was sitting on the couch watching the news, waiting for the call. I asked him, "What's going to happen?" He replied, "I don't know." The look of terror in his eyes I'll never forget. Moments later, the house phone rings. "Yes, sir, yes, sir. On my way, sir. Thank you." He hangs up the phone and says to me, "I got to go, honey." This moment will live with me forever. I was so afraid that I would never see him again. You can tell he was concerned not only for his fate, but for his families and for the country. Knowing something has changed for the worse in our world. The 90s were so full of hope and excitement for the future, and it's just seemed to get sad after that horrible day. Those alive and old enough to remember during 9/11? Well, fuck me if that didn't make me feel old. The tear probably goes like this. 1. The absolute worst was the jumpers. 2. Very close behind was the first of the two tower collapses, and then the second. Up to that point, most people were still able to rationalize in their brains, even if they knew it wasn't true, that there might be some hope of reaching the people above the plane impact level. Not only did you have the realization of how many people just died, but also that a huge chunk of New York City's fire and rescue, police, and paramedics were just wiped out. 3. The moment the second plane hit, and everyone knew it was terrorism. The moment the Pentagon was hit, it was like all bets were off, and everything might be under attack. There were so many rumors of other targets that day, like an explosion outside the State Department, or the people running from the White House. Even threats on other major cities like Chicago and LA. That's when the nationwide panic really hit. I'd rather answer with a positive. It was inspiring to see New Yorkers, known for being rude and standoffish, come together and help others in the way they did. And the firefighters and police officers truly gave honor to the job in ways we don't have anymore. I remember heading to work. It was a beautiful day, clear skies, warm. The first plane hit, lots of chatter, seemed surreal. After that, all traffic stopped. Everyone was in front of a TV. In the afternoon, panic set in. People went nuts, waiting hours to buy gas, food, supplies, etc. 9/11, in my opinion, destroyed America. After that, greed set in hard. Food prices, gas prices, car insurance skyrocketed overnight. Your employer used to cover 100% of your health care. That all ended that day. The billionaires took control. Not knowing if the attack was over, everyone who lived through it has a story. What's yours?